Are you guys over there? Hillary, I'm glad you love it. However, I might have to get bigger boxes to ship some of those. I've had really good luck mailing the candles. Ironically, this is the first one in almost a year that I have had break in shipping. So who else do we have on here? I got to get ready here. Let's see. Is there a way to make this bigger? There we go. Spiritual Swan, hello. Have you joined me on here before? I don't recognize a lot of usernames most of the time. Awesome. Well, we'll give everybody a few minutes to hop on here. I always feel like I'm running around with the chicken, like with its head cut off right before one of these. So I just kind of figured if I hop on early, then I don't have to feel rushed, and then I can wait for everybody else to hop on. So hello, Tanya. How are you guys doing in Iowa? Of course, hello again, Carol. I love you. You are awesome. Good evening, Megan. Is it Vita? I don't know how to pronounce that. I hate butchering people's names. There you go. That'll make sense. Well, I feel like it is finally spring here, where today it was actually like sunny, and looking at the forecast going forward, I used to work for Garden Center, and so I would always be chomping at the bit this time of year to get things going and get outside. And it seems like now things are finally moving, where the warmer evenings are coming up, and the temperatures during the day are actually starting to feel like spring. So if you guys are able to get outside and get in some extra light grounding, things lately have been really kind of crazy. So get outside when you can. Definitely pull out the stops when it comes to grounding. Good evening, Christine. Hello again, Hillary. You're awesome. So I should have shared this more, but I didn't. But what we're going to do, since most of you guys, I think, have actually gotten to join me before, I assume people are probably going to still kind of hop on. I didn't push the notification out like I should have. But I really have fun doing this. This is something where it keeps me in the loop with you guys. Not working at the store, it's been, I've kind of missed getting to talk to a lot of you. And so this is kind of time designated where we can not only kind of touch base, but there's a lot of people who are interested in the work that I do. And I've got a lot of projects going on kind of behind the scenes that I'm excited about. I'm working on a Evil Eye candle and the tea lights and everything to go with it, and getting like other sample packs going, and building your own sage kits. And I have actually learned a lot about website navigation, where never in my life did I think that I would be any type of IT person. And doing a lot of the behind the scene work that I've done on my website has actually felt pretty good. And every once in a while, when you challenge the mind, you can actually be kind of proud of yourself. So I'm going to get this rolling. Kind of the free flow, guys. Thank you, Cindy. Any questions that you might have? I've actually gotten a lot of questions about the candles, because that's something that I just kind of sprung on a lot of people, where I started it last summer, and then it's kind of just snowballed to where I'm doing the full moon ones, and then I'm doing the new moon candles now, where they are all about manifesting. So if you guys have any questions off the bat, go ahead and start throwing them in the chat bar, and then they will just be there, and then we will go from there. But not everybody all at once. Over. All right, give me 1 second here. All right, Hillary. What is a new moon candle or a full moon? What do you do to set your intentions? So what's fun with this, anytime you go to light it, I'm going to tell you to set intention. The beauty of when they're made is kind of like harnessing that specific energy. And so new moons in general are the best times for setting intentions, starting new cycles. Full moons a lot of times is letting go. And so what I like to do is kind of capture that energy, and then as you use it, there's no wrong way. And so if you're going through, for example, one cycle is about strength, okay, and then you're going through a breakup, you can set the intention to light that candle and then meditate with it and then use that for strength. But then the next time you can set a different intention. It's similar to the crystals. So anytime you use a crystal, especially the clear quartz, you can set your own intention and kind of program it so that it's there for you to use how you wish to use it. What's fun with the new moons, I feel like the energy with the new moon intentions are way more versatile. And so it's kind of what I've done differently with these is I don't sit down with any kind of plan, and I have made each one completely unique, individual, using different colors, different crystals. And then each one I will then kind of be able to go in and kind of name. So the last batch I had, one was called Abundance, for example. Well, that might be the intention that I had when I had put it together. However, as you light it, you can set the intention, okay, I need money, so we need abundance in this, or we're building a garden and we want to have an abundance of produce at the end of the year. You're able to still kind of dictate how you want to use it. But I think any way that people are getting more in touch with themselves, living more with intention, people are seeing more and more results on their own. And so it's not really manipulating energy, but when you're able to live with intention, it's like living with an awareness. And so I've always loved candles. And as a gardener, that's what really got me in touch with the lunar cycles. And so it's been fun to kind of bring all these little pieces of my life into my art. And then obviously you guys get to enjoy them from there. Kristen, is it possible to have a Kundalini awake during a sleep state? And what does that even mean? I've dreamt and I've had these really strange involuntary movements. So that process is kind of like a spiritual awakening in general. Now, just because we're asleep, that doesn't mean that the mind is actually resting, or that the subconscious isn't doing something, or that you're not astral traveling to some parallel universe, like literally out of your body. And so sometimes, well, for one, if you're waking up having those strange movements or feeling tingly, what's interesting is I would ask you to either make notes of when you're noticing this feeling, because I have noticed a buzzing every time the Schumann resonance spikes. My sleep gets wonky around these like 3 o'clock hour. I'm woken up, I'm like wide awake, but then I also started noticing this weird tingling or like a buzzing feeling where I'm like, what on earth is this? Where it kind of messed with my mind for a bit, because I kept thinking that there was going to be a cause, or that I could like determine a trigger. And then when I realized that there was this pattern, I would really consider looking into that. Now, what's happening with, we've had a lot of solar flares where yesterday about 3 o'clock, I don't know how many of you guys might have gotten like a wave of tiredness or sleepiness or heavy, or just kind of like feeling drained of energy. The other day, or a few days ago, we had one of the largest solar flares that the sun has kicked out this year, and it takes a couple days before that energy hits Earth, but it affects everybody differently. But what's happening is it's actually kind of like, there's so many different ways that I could word this, but it's literally like upgrading your DNA, your genetics, we're evolving. And so people, have had a lot of in the heart chakra, or a lot lately in like the third eye. And the reason for that is those chakras are getting stimulated because of these pulses of energy coming in. And the people who are not used to even visually seeing spirit are seeing dead people. They're getting woken up. These, it's not like they're being changed. I call it system activation, system startup. And so with all of this actually happening a lot lately, it's like the earth beat, or the heartbeat of the earth, every time it spikes, we, especially the people who are energy sensitive, also kind of go with this pulse. And as weird as it is, I feel like anytime you have something that you can kind of connect the dots or relate to, it makes understanding it a little bit easier. But I would, and you can message me later on this one, but look back at when it started. I think probably 6 weeks ago is when the Schumann like kept spiking, and then it's been pretty active here in like the last couple weeks. But definitely a lot of people are getting into feeling these things. And what's funny to me to watch is people that are not used to any kind of spirituality or having experiences, and they're going to start questioning their own thoughts. But that's why I'm grounding. Cindy, how did you get into candle making? So this question, I'm gonna take a drink quick. When I was in 6th grade, we're going all the way back. As a kid, I've always loved candles. And in middle school, I grew up in Sioux City, Iowa, and we had a program where every kid had to either have a job or own a company and then employ people. And the company I started in 6th grade was called Kurt's Candles. And at the time, the teacher of the classroom that I was in, she would get me wax from the Goodwill. She would get candles that were half burnt. She would bring in crayons, which ironically is like an old conjuring trick to color candles. And I would put them in cookie cutters and do different things with them. And it's funny for me how much it stuck with me. But I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, those candles had to have been awful. Like, you light it and the whole room's going to smell like a hot crayon. Like, But where it kind of circled back for me, I grew up with a rockhound. My grandmother had married a rockhound. And so I was always around the crystals and the stones. And as my life has kind of evolved, I got more into, I used to do like the farmer's market when I lived in Lincoln, doing like living art, plant art. And then during quarantine last year, I'm like, okay, I'm given this time to really kind of think, which anytime somebody's going through the spiritual awakening, they get these kind of moments of being isolated where you kind of self-reflect, you think a lot. And I'm like, okay, what can I do that could help me live with purpose and with intention and purpose? And I need to be creative. Like for me, it's just, it's part of what I need. And I remember thinking, okay, what do I always ask people during a reading who are very stuck in life or feel like they don't know their purpose? I always say, what did you love when you were like 10, 12, 13 years old? Because at that age, you know exactly what you love. You're going to gravitate towards your favorite things. But it isn't until somebody comes along and says, oh, you don't want to do that. Oh, you want to be a doctor. You don't want to be a candle maker. You don't want to be an artist. You don't want to be a photographer. Like, it changes your mind. And so I'm like, go back to this age. What did you love? Who were you then? And at the time, I remember sitting there thinking, well, I did candles, okay. And then I just had this idea where I started with 6 and I did black tourmaline and tiger eye and rose quartz, amethyst. And they were so well received that I just kept making them. And then I got really, really inspired. And now I'm totally running with it, where it's fueling not only my creativity, but I feel like I'm also helping other people energetically and vibrationally. So that was one thing I really liked when I did the living art, was that I knew whether people were drawn to the creations for any reason, I knew that they were going to get some kind of benefit from it, even if they didn't know. They were just like, oh, this is cute. I'm going to enjoy it by my nightstand and not realize that it's actually raising their vibrations. And candles, that puts out a lot into the atmosphere. And so it's helping people in a kind of random, indirect way. But that is, that's the best way I can answer that for you. So thank you for asking. Any suggestions for crystal for testicular cancer? That one's going to go down to sacral. There's a Turritella agate, which isn't really an agate, and I feel like I've mentioned this one before. For men in general, that's going to be a good one that helps kind of bring the sacral kind of back into harmony. There's the carnelian. Do you know? Oh, either way, you're going to have to detox. The smoky quartz is what I get to thinking of in terms of like detoxifying the body, especially if they were going through any kind of treatment that's supposed to kind of help draw things down, pull things out. For whatever reason, I am actually picturing it's a yellow jasper. So I'm going to actually have to look into that one later. Good question, though. Carol, any crystals for rheumatoid arthritis? So I'm going to hit this one for you from two different angles. That to me is like chronic inflammation. And so fluorite is one that is going to kind of help. I will tell you right now, stay away from hematite, stay away from shaman stones. Those can actually amplify some of that pain feeling. The fluorite would be a good one. And then it's a white, it's pronounced aragonite. That helps with like bone issues, nerve issues. I think the combination, if you can get kind of like the inner and then kind of the outer, as far as like the bone, and then when it comes to root cause, I would actually tell you to, if you don't have milky quartz, that is one, if you look at it, it's kind of clouded, but it helps give you kind of insight on what you need to do. But there's also a lot of people that if they get insight from it, pay attention if it's dietary, because for that reason with the milky quartz, it kind of like gives you this weird insight on if it's something that you're actually ingesting. Because what I honestly think is a lot of times with the chronic arthritis or the rheumatoid arthritis, your immune system is in total overdrive and it's attacking itself. And so it's like, okay, well, what the hell is going on that's making it go into overdrive? So between balancing out the inflammation and then dietary, I would honestly go for that one and see where you go from there. Good evening, Nate. Thanks for joining. Why the big boom on Moldavite? I carry mine every day and love it, but notice that it has gained a lot of popularity. So I'll just be honest here. There's anything with spirituality is we're going to be drawn towards it for specific reasons. But then there are also people who view it who are not spiritual people, and they view this what we do as trendy. And the fact that Moldavite has kind of a neat story, the fact that it's like it's very novelty. It only comes from Czech Republic. It comes from a meteorite hit the earth where I love this stuff. I have a pair of faceted earrings and it's very high vibration, but there's a lot of people who probably can't necessarily handle it. And so people flock to it. And there's a lot of vendors who can't even get it anymore because their suppliers are running low, or the price has supply and demand gone up so high that it's like not even worth trying to buy. Now, it's a stone that I'm glad I have in my collection. It's one that I would encourage a lot of people to have, especially anytime you want to go through transformation, because when Moldavite was formed, it happened like immediately, boom. There was so much energy that it literally transformed the surface area of the earth into this green, almost like green glass. But when we carry it, it kind of empowers us through and pushes us through transformation. So whether you are growing on a spiritual level or through like work, career, it's wonderful when it comes to things happening quick. Cosmically, it's very good for connecting with the universe. So I usually have like a meteorite pendant, which I love, or the Moldavite. I just love things that are very galactic. Everything, we're a part of everything that's so much larger than us. And so to get to feel like you can be a piece of it or have a piece of it, that is very special. But I think trend, I think the way, whether it be like social media, anything that catches a trend, I mean, watch the next thing be like concrete. I mean, who knows? But good question. Cindy, do I have any group readings in the near future? So actually right now I do not. However, I have had so many wheels turning. I have people asking me, and it's like, okay, I think now that people are kind of settling down with the COVID fear, what did I just find out today? Garth Brooks is going to Lincoln. It's like if venues are getting comfortable booking entertainment to bring a crowd, having confidence that the crowd is going to come and not be in fear, or be able to have things where they can meet in the middle, it gives me motivation to get back on the bandwagon, because the last like group reading that I had planned ended up being like the week of the shutdown last year. And so I have not gotten to circle back into it, but I've also looked at the Zoom option. There's other people that do that. And so I think that's probably something I should pursue, because that would take like no planning. And so since people continue to ask, that's the other thing. And while I'm talking about readings, I'm still doing them just over the phone, FaceTime, Skype, mainly Zoom, but I am working on trying to get in somewhere with an energy practitioner who's local, where I can do maybe like once a month, have like kind of like a pop in and have people that want to do the in-person stuff. So I love getting to work with you guys, and it's an honor every time that I do. So anytime I can make myself available to do so, it makes me feel good in the process. Good evening, Gina. You're one of those people, so I appreciate it. Hello, Lynn. Oh, my darn mouse, I just lost my spot. Oh, and Diane. Bumblebee Jasper. So Diane, or Brienne, not sure what you're asking. It gets its color from sulfur and arsenic. It is one that solar plexus. I've actually read where people that do have not dietary issues, but actual allergies, food allergies, that is one that is supposed to kind of help digestively with that. It's one that's very cool. However, it's not one that you want to meditate with. It's not one that you want to carry. It's not one that you want to have access to kids or anything that's going to put in their mouth, because it's literally sulfur and arsenic. So I remember the first time I actually opened a sealed bag, it smelled like Yellowstone. And I was like, whoa, that's actually pretty interesting. Like, clearly that's what it is. I'm not sure if that was your question, but fluorite bracelet quite a bit. Good deal, Carol. So like I said, if you want to stay away from hematite or like the shaman stones, or if that gets your wheels turning, there might be other stones that could aggravate inflammation that you want to try to stay away from. Now I got hello, Amber. Hello, Courtney. Hello, Aaron. Back to Gina. Slept till 3 to 6 yesterday. So it's like the way that the energy has been hitting everybody, it is honestly mind-blowing. But yesterday when that solar wave hit, it was like I was kind of like going 100 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden it was like, I kind of need a nap. And I literally tried to talk myself out. I'm like, I gotta listen to my body. And I like sat down. I didn't even move, and I was like so relaxed to just rest. But there's a lot of people who are, I don't know, it's interesting. And so I'm not sure. There's the way that I have felt today. I don't know what's coming, but I'm like, the next day could be very, very interesting. Hillary, good question. Why would anything that is going to affect our energy is going to affect anyone who is hypersensitive? And so any children who are autistic or viewed autistic because they are hypersensitive, whether it be sound, senses, vibrations, the way we're all getting upgraded, I was just telling a friend of mine yesterday, I have never felt vibrations the way that I feel them now, to where it's strange. It's like I kind of mentioned this earlier, like this buzzing, that's kind of how it started. Now it's almost like I picture these animals that live underground, and they can tell when somebody steps like 100 yards away. They're like, oh, there's a human over there. I will hear like a block away a car turn the corner, and then I will almost feel from the ground this vibration. I'm like, how is this possible? And it's like how people that are already sensitive were just getting amplified, and these new senses, or people that are getting new senses, or getting things that have been shut down reopened. It's interesting, but kids, it's no different. So they're not going to comprehend or understand, where even for me, I'm like, how many times in my past has solar flares affected me like this, and I haven't actually been aware of it? But once you are very mindful of how you're affected, the more that you learn about astrology, the more that you learn about how everything is connected, it's mind-blowing. So with kids, so Hillary, with this one, you're going to know what grounds your child the most. For whatever reason, I'm going to tell you, think of earth elements. Go with either wind. See if a fan will actually change that kind of energy for him. Think about water. So I'm a Cancer, so I'm very much a water person. Water is very relaxing, but when it comes to grounding, he might need a different earth element. So think of water, think of air. Let's not encourage him to play with fire. That's not one that we want to encourage any kid, especially one who likes to play with fire. So we'll move on from that one. Brianne, yep. Yellow Jasper. I'm not sure even why that one hit me. I kept picturing it, and it was like, okay, why? And my mind is like, I'm gonna have to look up this one later, but that is the Yellow Jasper that I had hit me earlier. So, all right, guys, it looks like I'm at the end of the questions. So keep them coming, keep them firing. It's fun that I get to do this. Last time there was, let's see, what was the full moon? So there's a lot of people, okay, retrogrades coming up. That was one where I've gotten a few questions where it seems like every time somebody sees the Mercury retrograde come around, it's kind of like programming. People have been programmed to learn to fear retrograde, where mindset. So yes, you want to be mindful. Yes, you want to be a little more cautious of how quick you let things be out of the mouth. You don't always want to speak your mind. However, there's so many good benefits that come from retrograde, where I'm like, oh, no, amplify this, get grounded, balance yourself, and then run with it. There's just a lot of fear, and a lot of people enjoy pushing fear because it gives some kind of control, where I'm like, no, you will have so much more peace, kind of creating your own spirituality. And so anybody that has the questions about the Mercury retrograde, like specifically, yes, it does affect us. However, it's been one of those, it's kind of like the Moldavite, where every planet goes into retrograde, maybe not as often. They all affect us both ways, but for whatever reason, this one gets more attention than kind of the rest. Sarah, house number of an 8. So I have not lived in the house of an 8. I know a house of a 5, it's all about change. You're going to be going through change the entire time. Where am I now? I think I'm in a 3. So 8s. I gotta be honest with you, that one I'm not actually certain. Typically for me, 8s in general represent abundance, infinite possibilities. What goes around comes around, ebbs and flows, balance of life. It's kind of like the, well, let me ask you. So how long have you been in this place of an 8? And then my next question is, have you felt more balanced? Have you felt more things come as you give, and that sort of thing? So Tanya, I was in meditation last night and the name Sandra popped into my head, and then I heard, no, my name is Sally, very clearly. Was that a spirit guide? So that is a good question, because in this case, when you were meditating, did you have an intention? Were you intending to clear your mind? Were you intending to meet your spirit guide? Were you intending to get away from everybody, and then you still have a spirit come and talk to you? Like, I would actually have to say this is somebody who has access to be able to communicate with you. And so if you don't have a loved one with that name, then I would be willing to bet money that it's going to be one of your spirit guides. So for me, when I started meditating, there was, I would always go to the mountains, and then there was this kind of landscape where it was just kind of like my version of paradise. And there was a woman who, I don't know, probably like after a month of doing this regularly, it was almost like shamanic journeying, if you've ever heard of that. So she just kind of kept appearing, and it was like, well, now who is this in my little paradise? Like, okay. But there was never any kind of communication. She kept like pointing to these wild roses, and which happened to be very symbolic for me all the way back to my childhood. They're planted at my grandmother's house. And so it was like, okay, but this is not tied to her. And so it ended up taking her probably a handful of times before I was able to actually be like, okay, what is this? Who is this? And if you can hear them, then this is one where I would tell you, go back into a state of meditation, setting the intention to make contact with your guide. But when you do, typically the reason you heard the voice but didn't say anything is because they're going to be kind of like coming up behind you, where if you can ask them to kind of come around in front of you and present themselves. This guide of mine, her name is Monica, and she is kind of like my go-to for everything. But I've got another guide who helps me with readings. And then I've got a guide, his name is Garrett, anytime I've had like a health issue, for example. But the guy that helps me with my readings, he only shows me his hands, like literally like this. And so if I'm trying to picture something and I see his hands, and then I see like a wad of money appear, then I know that the message I need to repeat is, okay, I'm picturing something about like this wad of money. And when I set the intention to meet this guy, because it's like, okay, you're helping me, he came around and there was nothing but a set of hands. And I was almost like, not really, I was thrown off because it was weird. I was looking for like a sense of comfort, and then there was this apparatus with no face. Well, I've learned where spirit, when it comes to names, identity, it's all for humans. Spirit's really, it's an energy. The identity does not matter. The name, what they go by. So if you have a reference to kind of slap that label to identify what this guide is, perfect, because then you can kind of build from it. But to this day, in 5 years now of doing readings, I've never seen more than this person's hands. However, it wouldn't actually do me any reason to see more. So for whatever reason, he likes to hide. I've heard of other people having weird, they feel like one of their guides is a color. And for me, I don't have this experience. So for me, I don't understand it, but they just have this guide that's like this hue of a color that's just like over here. Well, okay. If you're wanting to work with your spirit guides, I would encourage, there's Angelite, there's blue kyanite is my go-to for spiritual communication, but Angelite, blue kyanite, the lapis, blue lapis, will probably stimulate some of the visions, but if you're wanting to actually connect to communicate, blue kyanite is my jam. That's what I would go for. Since retrograde falls on my birthday, does that mean anything? So kind of goes up with earlier. Each round, I would have to look at your actual birth chart to know what else is going on in your astrology. And this is something that I do want to learn how to look more into, because it's fascinating where you see the trend, but then you see it within everybody. But when you can apply it to your individual life, it can be pretty empowering. As far as this goes, I would tell you that probably 2 weeks after your birthday, be way more mindful of the people that reach out to you, because when we're in this more of a emotional or vulnerable state, and then you've got people that are reaching out to you because it's your birthday, this is not the time to go back to toxic people of the past. But however, this is the time that they like to reach out. And so especially when it's your birthday, do not give them any more of a reason to reach out. If they do, we just sweep it to the side and ignore it. After the fact, I would tell you, I don't know why today's the 12th. I was like, why am I picturing the 12th? Write that number down for you, and then we will talk about that later. No, so there is a bumblebee jasper, there's a yellow jasper, and there's a limonite jasper, which is also kind of yellow. The one I was actually picturing is yellow, and the reason I probably, now that I'm connecting this dot like around later, that is one that helps people deal with negative emotions when they are trying to escape or ease pain. And so a lot of times cancer comes from a negative emotion tied to resentment or those kind of ill feelings. And so it's probably more of an emotional component that we want to address first, because the body is already brewing up stuff that it doesn't need to have there. Lynn, I saw on YouTube about reptilians. They were saying that they can transform into humans. I was wondering if that's true. So, all right, Lynn, there's a lot of information out there. And the first time I had heard of the reptilians was probably 8 or 9, maybe even 10 years ago, where a friend of mine enlightened me, and I'm like, okay, even if this is the case, like, why are we giving it so much energy? Why are we thinking about it? And as he would continue to talk about stuff, I'm like, okay, the source, I look into the source, and David Icke is the big talker. He talks a lot, he writes a lot about this. And I remember at the time looking at this, it was over my head. I did not understand it. I didn't know what to believe. I found it very confusing. And so as we go forward, okay, throughout the spiritual journey, we understand that we all come here. We all come here from somewhere. And it's like, okay, well, where are we from? Or who's to say that, if we have certain spiritual gifts, who's to say that there aren't gifts that other people have that we don't have? And it can get really controversial to even talk about it, because some of it does seem so absolutely far-fetched. But to entertain the idea that there are basically another species who are farming humans, who either brought us here for self-gain or for control, or have come here and they've been able to genetically bring us to life, or part of evolution, or to get here, kind of comes from or stems from this. And there is so much information out there. And obviously when it comes to any kind of conspiracy, it's like, but this is one, take it with a grain of salt. If you look into it and you're sitting there like, this makes absolutely no sense, it's not your truth. But if you look into it and think, oh my God, you mean to tell me that there's a chance that I could have this reptilian DNA because of being genetically bred from these things over the past like few thousand years? Like, is it really possible? There's so much out there that right now we look at the collective and the spiritual enlightenment and everything that's happening, whether you want to look at evil, whether you want to look at darkness, evil, lightness, love, it's kind of like a war of darkness, and there's a lot of things of darkness that are getting labels. And so however you interpret what's going on, as we are coming to life, we are shedding light on this darkness. And there's a lot to the darkness that personally I do believe to be true, that is not good. And so the only way to rise above is to function from a higher frequency by raising your vibes and literally living from a state of love, because that is how we get to kind of that fifth dimensional frequency. But that is a very good question. Like I said, there's been so many things out there where it's stuff that doesn't make sense. And the more that I've dove into, I personally, I have a hard time ruling anything out anymore because there's so much information, and especially now with social media and the way stuff spreads, it's like, well, even if it's inspired by a truth or a part of a truth, there has to be something to it. So in this case, it's very interesting where it will be very odd to see where things go. But good question. Oops, totally lost my place here. Oh goodness, hang in there. Okay, my son has been asking to take a bath lot lately. He's Pisces, grounding is natural for him. So exactly, I am one of those people. I like to be close to water. I like to be by the lake. I like to, I mean, hell, if I could live by the ocean, I would. But I've always wanted to have fish. I've always had an aquarium. When I was 18, I had an aquarium in my bedroom that was up for probably like 3 years, never even had a fish in it because it was that water element. And back then I didn't even understand, but it was like, no, I have to have it. And my friends are like, but dude, it's an empty aquarium. I'm like, but I need it. So it's important to kind of honor what each person is, but I would have to find a different element for any kid who's a fire element because we don't want to encourage them to play with fire. Sarah, my house was an 8 before I lived there. Oh, and now my new house is an 8 as well, only been 5 months. It's probably just kind of, there's again, that's kind of like that sense of balance where you went through the change, but you didn't have the uprooting of everything else that kind of changed. It just kind of flowed. When it comes to the numerical sequence, I wouldn't imagine it's going to feel a whole lot different. If anything, it should feel good. So if you liked your last place, that same feeling should be pretty relevant there. I have a guy that is a playful mist. Now, that's interesting because that is one where you can see both in a meditative state, but you will have moments, especially as solar flares are coming in, where you will see stuff out of that corner of your eye. And if you already know what to look for, then I'm sure that mist is always right around the corner from you. Hi, Danielle. Boundaries. What's your question there? Boundaries. We're just going to go ahead and wait for someone to ask another question. That's what we're going to do. So, any advice for starting out meditating? That is one, you can't force it. And that's the problem. So many people, what I run into is they see what works for someone else and they're like, oh, meditating, you did them all this justice. And so we say, okay, when I started, obviously guided meditations, headphones, YouTube, wonderful. Deepak Chopra was actually who I started with. There's like a 20-minute guided, it was like a 21-day challenge, I think. And it worked and I got enough from it, but it wasn't enough for me to stick with it. It was something that I just kind of let go of very easily because while it worked, it wasn't what I needed, what my spirit, my soul was searching for. So what is meditative for me now? Being creative. Like when I did the new moon candles, like I said, I sat down, I had no plan. It's my mind opens up to this place where I'm just in the moment, going with the flow. And that's one thing that most people don't realize is that the act of meditation is to not necessarily control your thoughts and get everything to this absolute silence. It's just so that, hey, while you're doing this, you can stay focused. And yeah, you got clothes in the dryer, but they'll also be there later. You can get them later. It doesn't have to be done now. And as you continue to kind of bring yourself back into that moment, that is where I find, okay, I've got like a different idea. Walking, for example, for me, walking, if I will take my dog for a walk, I like to leave my phone behind, because even being in a place of meditation, you can circle back to, oh, I need to check my email. Oh, I need to check this. Oh, I never responded to so-and-so. Or it gets you to, for me, walking is like, I will observe. And so I'm like, oh, look, that's a really cool tree. And oh, look, that tree, that, grass just got mowed. And oh, look, that's a neat cloud. Going from kind of thing to thing, literally just seeing, if you want to sit in the food court at the mall and be like, well, there's a woman with white shorts who just bought a bag from this store, and calling out things that you are seeing is literally keeping you in the moment. And people don't realize it's as you're coming back to that centering spot, that's that place of peace. And so whatever you do to get to that point is what I like to encourage. I also love to cook. And so if you're making soup, you can just get lost in it and just kind of go to town. And then it's when you are completely present, that's that meditative state. And so if you're not able to actually, sit cross-legged and sit in silence for 20 minutes, then sit outside and just watch cars drive by, watch the birds, find something that catches your interest. Now, if guided meditating isn't your thing, I mean, we all function differently. Our brains, it's interesting to think how much we really are different now versus maybe 100 years ago, because of the chemicals that we've been exposed to and the emotions that, as our environments have changed, we've had a lot of changes in society in 100 years, and everything that we're exposed to changes our brain chemistry. And so you have to know what works for your body, your mind. So if there's something that you enjoy, but the point is, even taking a shower, if you can take a shower and every time you think of, oh, I have to do this later, acknowledge it and say, and I will do that later, but I'm not going to worry about it now because this hot water feels amazing. Those are probably the best tips I have for getting started. You can't force it though. And I think that's where I got discouraged early on. I know that's where I've had friends and I've worked with other people that get discouraged because like, well, I just can't stick with it. And it's like, if you found something that actually inspired you, it's easy to stick with it. So we'll see if that helps you out. When people say picture yourself surrounded by white light, I only see purple. Does that mean anything? Almost like what I mentioned earlier, there's that person who has this spirit guide that is almost just like a color. For me, purple, white, and gold are all colors that I see associated with the crown chakra. And so some people see Reiki energy, for example, as white light. Some people see it as gold light. If you're, it could also kind of be that indigo. And not to mention, our eyes are also different in how we interpret colors and hues. The purple is definitely, it's all up here. And so that's probably more of a chakra, actually. If you've had way more energy in your crown chakra than anywhere else, or if you're meditating and you've got all of your energy up there, that would also probably make sense where that would reflect purple. If you've never seen the white, then the purple's just cool. I wouldn't question it. I'd like that, to be honest. Like purple smoke coming around me. Kind of badass. Peaceful mind. What is your favorite crystal for manifesting? If you were wanting to manifest, I like the word abundance because abundance can be open-ended. It's not money. It's not, my go-to is pyrite. So pyrite is fool's gold. When it comes to abundance, that's always having roof over your head. That's always having more than enough food to eat. That's always having your essential needs met and not worrying about there being limitation. And so people who, people who live in fear, they will literally worry, oh my God, if I don't get to the store, then they're going to be out of what I need to eat before I get there. It's like, okay, well, people that can shift how their brain works, they can then start tapping into this abundance. And it wasn't a concept, I don't know, probably 5 years ago. There was a lot of talk about abundance blocks, and oh, you're poor because you got an abundance block, and it gave everybody all this false hope, like, oh well, this person said I had an abundance block and it's open, and so I should have all this money now. But it's like, if they don't change the way they think, then it doesn't change. And so what I see is abundance is everywhere. I mean, the world is abundant. Our society has brought us up to shape and to create such a weird limitation on what we can tap into. And I find it very odd. But if you can keep people from living that way and living in fear, I mentioned earlier, it keeps them in control. And so when it comes to abundance in general, pyrite is my go-to. And it's actually one that I used in quite a few of the candles from yesterday. So we'll have to get those out later. Amber, so I have reached a crossroads of stepping into my truth and being honest and staying in my light. Fear of judgment has been a block for me. How do you overcome that? I am a Cancer empath medium. So, to be honest, you just have to. For me, doing video is not my comfort zone. It's something I would like to get comfortable with because I have a lot of ideas and I have a lot of things. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I could just break that barrier. And for me, breaking that barrier is sitting down here with you guys once a month, getting myself more comfortable in a place where it is different for me, because sure, you guys are here, but I'm also talking to an empty room, and it's like not something my mind is used to. Growing up, I knew that for me to be myself, I knew that I wouldn't be accepted. And so that led me down a very strange path of living a very inauthentic life. And so for me personally, the more that you can do to honor your authentic self, you will realize those fears really aren't that. The idea of the fear is bigger than any repercussion that you would actually face. And for me to either come out as gay, or then 2 years later, when I came out as a medium, I actually felt like I was having to tiptoe around it. I didn't know how my family would take it. I didn't know how, my aunt and my grandma, they love the Long Island medium. And every time she's in Sioux City, they're going to go and hope that my cousin comes through. And I think it's amazing. But yet when I stepped forward, they were like, oh, but what do we tell our friends? How do we respond? And it's one of those things, there is a stigma. And initially I started with the word intuitive. And then as people would kind of question things, and then once I've had a couple readings where it was at an event where this kid gave me his name and how he passed away to relay this message on to his mother. And I remember going home that night thinking like, okay, I have to accept that wasn't intuitive. That was the work of a medium. Like, you had a dead kid tell you how he died, gave you his name, and comfort his mother. Like, that's a medium. And I went home and I changed from the intuitive to change my Facebook page to actually say psychic medium. It's one of those things that when you start to tiptoe into living your life with purpose, you do just start to care less what people think. And we're always growing. And because we're always growing, we always want to honor that new growth. But that keeps us kind of awkwardly uncomfortable, because as we continue to always grow, we can either take a step back, hold ourselves back, and watch everybody else live, or you can go with the flow. And it's, for me, I've had a lot of work to continue to stay true to me. But for you to know who you are, the people who are weak, the people who I don't want to use the term copycat, but the ones who don't really know themselves very well, and they literally mimic the energy of the people that they're around. And so they can act this way around these people and completely act different. It's because they don't know who they are. For you to know who you are, to step into those shoes, you intimidate the people who don't know who they are. And they're going to be the ones who turn around, go the opposite direction. You will see people step back. You will see people question. But what's really cool is my aunt has always believed in me, but she was obviously more concerned about, oh geez, like you've gotten yourself through so much, like, oh geez, now what you're going to put yourself out there into. And for her to watch me over the course of the last few years continue to get momentum, to still not have a negative review, to continue to feel good about the work that I'm doing, and for her to take this questionable sense of not really shame, but to turn it into a sense of pride. Like, you know what? I don't care if people don't get the work that my nephew does. I'm still going to talk about it because I'm proud of him. And you will just continue to attract those kind of people. Quality over quantity. I keep my circle small by choice because I would much rather have people that empower my path than all these energy drains that don't feel good about the choices that they're making. So you just have to gravitate towards people that are also like-minded, but you will be very proud of yourself the more that you continue to honor exactly who you are. I got an alert on my doorbell and I went and checked on it. I didn't see anything, but all of a sudden seen something out the corner of my eye. How can, so I've seen several videos where people, they are so excited because like, ooh, I got this ghost on footage last night. And then I'm looking, I'm like, honey, that is dust. And they're like, nope, watch it. And they're so like, their mind is so set on what it's going to be that they already know what it is. And so when it comes to spirit does it's energy. And so they can manipulate electronics. I have one where I swear I'm in communication in my mind. And then the second something shifts. And then if I have music that is streaming to a wireless speaker, it stops. And my Wi-Fi is always fine. The Bluetooth is always fine. And I always know that it's the same one, but it's energy. And so somebody's getting a hold of you, whether it's, I don't know that it would be, and it's interesting because, again, 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't hear a single person talk about seeing spirit in color. Now, just today, I've had a third person acknowledge a sense of color. And so I think that's interesting. Go with it, but let's see. Jeez. I don't even know this one. All right, guys. So any questions as we are finishing up things here? Otherwise, I will appreciate you guys sitting with me. I've got, obviously I need to get the candles posted that I had photographed earlier, but I got in 7 new types of calcite yesterday that I am also super excited about because they are some of the highest quality tumbled pieces I've ever had. And they actually, to me, look like candy. There is a yellow calcite that, to me, it looks like almost like a yellow Jolly Rancher. I absolutely love it. So you guys are awesome. So if there aren't any other questions, we will wrap this up and I will see you guys next month. Aaron, real quick, any tips for a quick intuitive insight? So if you are looking to get like a quick answer, ground your energy, grab a coin, heads or tails. I don't have the luck that some people have using a pendulum. Sometimes I will use my necklace. However, I will go for a coin when I need this like lickety split, because anytime you need to make those quick decisions, ego kicks in and they want to make you question your instinct, question what you get sense wise. So I think that would be a wise thing to go for. But once again, thank you guys, and I appreciate you spending time with me, and we will see you next month. Take care. Bye-bye.